Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks to Alison and the team for the invitation to this wonderful event. I've not been to any Foresight Vision weekends before, but it's been really fantastic so far. So my name is Chiara. I'm a researcher at the University of Innsbruck and an executive committee member of the Biomarkers of Aging Consortium. And I'm very pleased to have the opportunity today to talk about the path to biomarker standardization, or rather, the path to biomarker of aging standardization. Very briefly, the outline. I'm probably going to zoom through most of this in the interest of time, but I really just want to give you an overview of what we do, why we do it, and who we are. I hope you will find this informative, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me over the next coming hours, days, or on LinkedIn, whenever. So, why biomarkers of aging? We know that on average, we spend around 20 years of our lives with at least one age-related disease. And if we want to extend lifespan, we don't really want to extend that period. What we really want to do is extend that period of health, ideally alongside lifespan. Neuroprotective or anti-aging or longevity interventions, whatever we may call them, are probably very effective if we apply them before the onset of disease in particular, but they may be different depending on the age group, the personal characteristics, and so on. So we really need to have some quantifiable tools to measure this process. And this is where biomarkers of aging come in. So essentially, they're meant to be biological, quantifiable tools that alone or in composite give us more information about our health than our chronological age alone. And they can measure, for instance, the aging process or aging rate, or the biological age, which are interesting, similar, but not the same concepts. And although there has been really a lot of hype around longevity in recent years, a test for human aging has been deemed overdue as early as 1969, which is really a long time ago. Although I've specifically mentioned human interventions, I wanted to point out that biomarkers can be used for many other important purposes, including basic research to find new therapies, epidemiological studies, or of course, human longevity medicine and clinical research. So I've mentioned that this has been a long quest, and in particular, due to recent advances in omics technologies and other biotech advances, there have been many biomarkers that are already available that people are using. There exist companies, but the problem is that there's not a lot of standard around it, and there's not many that are really used in the clinic at the moment. And this is due to several challenges, not limited to those, but these are a few of the most pressing ones. We don't know what biomarker to use and when. So there are so many biomarkers that if we speak about trees and forests, we can't see the forest from the trees. Many of them haven't been robustly validated yet, and we don't know how to implement them in current clinical care. And we don't have clean benchmarking around their properties, so when they work best. So there has been very little standardization and consensus. To tackle these challenges, in 2022, we founded the Biomarkers of Aging Consortium with the key aim to promote standardization and establish these biomarkers as reliable tools for longevity interventions. In a nutshell, what have we been doing? We are building roadmaps with pools of experts to build frameworks for terminology, validation, and implementation. We're hosting scientific meetings to foster knowledge exchange with our inaugural symposium, Sold to Capacity, in 2023. And we're building open source tools and engaging with the community to drive innovation. And I wanted to very briefly highlight how we've been tackling these specific challenges. In 2023, we built the first working definition and classification of biomarkers of aging, importantly integrating it with existing FDA frameworks for biomarkers, so this was a really important step forward. We've also been building a roadmap for validation of biomarkers, highlighting in particular an important need for the cross-population validation of biomarkers and a reduction of data silos. And most recently, we've been working on challenges and recommendations for biomarkers of aging for the clinical translation. And I'm happy to report that as of yesterday evening, this has been accepted for publication in Nature Aging. Just coming to benchmarking, I wanted to highlight that we've built an open source Python library because we really want to engage more closely with the data science community. And this library features 30 and counting biomarkers of I think it was the first implementation of GrimAge, open source. And with a few lines of code, I think this is like something like 3 or 4 lines of code in Python, you can generate these really nice benchmarking diagrams of your data. So this is openly available, and please come chat to me if you're interested. Taking a page out of the book of data science, we're also hosting for the first time a Biomarkers of Aging challenge that anyone can participate in, and we have cash prizes. And we're currently in phase 2, but essentially what we want to do is build the most predictive biomarkers of chronological age, mortality, and multimorbidity. And yeah, so we're in phase 2, still time to participate. I'd also like to extend a cordial invitation to our conference in Boston in November, where we'll have 2 very exciting days of basic science and also translational implementation of biomarkers. With that, I'm at the end of my very short talk. Please feel free to reach out and also talk to me if you have any interest. So thank you very much.
So I have a question about correlation and causation, because I have a clock here, and if I want it down, it will be younger. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, this is a very important point. So one of the things, and this is a big question in the field, is how do we make sure these biomarkers are, first of all, associated really with the aging process, and also can they tell us about biological outcomes? And I think the second one is almost more important. And this is something that's not completely solved yet. Ultimately, what we would like to have is what is called these validated surrogate endpoints, as the FDA defines them, where we see that a change in the biomarker level with an intervention will ultimately also mean that we have better outcomes or we reduce the disease. We're not there yet, but we hope we will be.
You listed validation and benchmarking as 3 separate bullets. Like, what's the distinction there in your mind?
So validation can have many different meanings. Benchmarking, in a sense, is just comparing them. So we see how do they compare against each other for different purposes, but it doesn't mean that they need to be for a specific purpose. Validation can have different meanings. In our work, we were specifically interested in validating them for further clinical use. And then there's the whole medical terminology that you can get into, like analytical validation, how stable is a biomarker, or clinical validation, because it's possible that a biomarker does what it's meant to do very well and it's validated, but it doesn't have any clinical relevance. And obviously that's also really important to know.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.